Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lawn Road Podcast. My name is Gabe Gooden. I'm the owner of Kaleo Lawn Care, and I am on the lawn road to building the best residential lawn care company in Colorado Springs. And this podcast is just documenting my journey in doing so. But if you've been following around for a little bit, I've expressed a desire to use this podcast as a platform for my fellow business owners in Colorado Springs to be able to share their stories, talk about their businesses, and pass along any advice that they have for us. And so today is that day, and I am very excited to have my first guest. He is a business owner. Mm-hmm. He's a friend of mine. Yep. He is a father and a husband. Yep. And he's a pretty funny guy.
Sometimes.
So, Patrick Little, thanks for hopping on the pod.
Yes, sir. Yeah, glad to be here.
So I want to start, we'll talk about business primarily.
Okay.
But I'd love if you could give a real quick pitch of just what your company is, and then we'll talk a little bit about your personal side, growing up, how you kind of got to where you're at, and then we can get back into business.
Cool.
But what do you do?
So I own and operate Colorado's finest window well covers. I specialize in the solid surface clear plastic covers for all the window wells in the greater El Paso County area. So I primarily focus Pueblo to Parker, Woodland Park to Calhan, and everything in between. So the covers that I build are custom fit to that specific well. I can attach to pretty much anything out there. So wood, composite, metal. There's even styrofoam ones out there that I've attached into. Yeah. They're kind of the faux brick upsell.
That's an upsell?
It's an upsell. It is an upsell. So I make and install every single well cover that I'm contracted to do. So they're essentially designed to look like they came with that specific well.
And how do you do that? Because you can't just guess.
No. So the way that I operate the business is I go out and I meet with either the homeowner, property manager, real estate agent, contractor, whoever it is that contacts me to come out and give an estimate. All my estimates are free. I go out and I measure the wells for the dimensions I'm looking for. So that way I can make sure the well cover is correct for that specific well. I go over all the details of the components of the well cover with the whoever I'm meeting with. Mm-hmm. And then if they decide they want to move forward, we schedule a time to do the install, and then I come back on time and get it done.
There's your selling point right there.
100%, yes.
Show up when I say I'm going to show up.
Well, 5 minutes early is on time, and that is the latest I try to show up.
We need more of that.
Yes.
That's a good piece of advice right now to everybody.
100%.
Take it, follow that footstep.
Half the job is showing up and fulfilling what you say you're going to do by actually doing it.
Agreed.
100%.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's what I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take us back to growing up, where you grew up. Well, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in the Seattle area.
Okay.
So my wife and I are both born and raised in that area. We actually met in college. We went to the same college, but we actually met at work. We both worked for Starbucks at the time, and she was doing not really a study abroad, but she did a semester at a school back in Indiana. And I started working at the Starbucks while she was there. And then when she came back, found out she was my new supervisor and has been for almost 20 years of marriage now. So, yeah, so we met working at Starbucks, and it's awesome because she noticed my work ethic above anything else when we first met. And she loves to say that. And usually I don't, because I just let her tell the story, but she's not here. So, but yeah, I've always had a strong work ethic where you don't collect a paycheck, you earn a paycheck. And if you don't earn that paycheck, you can be replaced.
Sure.
So yeah, worked through Starbucks all the way up into retail management. After college, I managed some pretty high-profile stores in the downtown Seattle area. Did a lot of high-value, like C-suite executive projects with the president of North and South American operations.
Wow.
Met Howard Schultz, the CEO, a handful of times. At one point, Starbucks and Pepsi were trying to do joint venture projects, and I got to meet the CEO of Pepsi at the time as well.
No kidding?
Yeah. So,
wow.
like,
Wait, what put you in those rooms?
So
Was that them coming in to get coffee?
no, so at that location that I was one of 4 managers.
Okay.
Because this location, it's the second store in the company's history, and we averaged over 5,000 customers a day.
Ooh.
Yeah, we were open, depending on the day, 21 or 22 hours a day.
Oh, it's like a 24-hour Starbucks.
Pretty much. It was pretty close. Like, we shut down for a few hours, just like 3 to 5 in the morning.
Okay. Interesting.
But other than that, like, yeah, we had 65-ish employees on the payroll for that one store. And at any given time, especially on Saturdays and Sundays, we would have over 20 people on the floor at once. So it was really high visibility, high volume.
This is a massive store.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
it was. Yeah, I mean, it was like, ballpark to put it in perspective, about the size of like an Olive Garden or.
No kidding.
Yeah, like it was massive.
Was there a lot of seating?
Yeah, the lobby, so it was like an indoor-outdoor concept because it was
Okay.
in a high-end shopping center.
Okay.
The indoor seating, easily 125 people.
That's wild.
Outdoor seating, like another 25 to 40.
Is this store still open? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, it's the second store in the company's
Okay.
History, so right behind Pike Place Market.
And that's the one you said that's the little one.
That's the little
hole
one.
in the
That's
wall.
the iconic first in the company's history. Yeah, that one's definitely like a tourist hotspot.
Okay.
Yeah, but that store that I was one of 4 managers at, we were such high volume, high visibility. We were a concept store. We had a lot of unique machinery that other stores didn't get to have. And so with that, because there were so many eyeballs on the store with corporate, and with corporate being right down the street, we had a lot of, hey, by the way, the president's going to come by, or the COO is going to come by.
Sure. Okay.
And so there was just a lot of interesting kind of introductions with other partnerships and companies that we would kind of get thrown into the mix right away. Like, hey, you got to make this work. It doesn't matter if you got 150 people waiting in line to get coffee. Figure it out.
Oh man.
So yeah, it was very eye-opening to retail management, in that managing expectations of like the customer-facing experience, as well as managing labor, managing material, and making sure you're profitable day in and day out.
What was the turnover like in a shop that big? Because, I mean, I assume good people needed to be there to handle those rushes. They needed to be good at customer service, getting drinks out fast.
Yes.
Was it?
There was some pretty good turnover.
Okay.
It was right on the University of Washington campus, so we had a lot of
Lots
kids.
of college kids, yeah.
But they loved the free drinks, because if you work an 8-hour shift, you can actually get up to 5 free drinks a day.
No kidding.
Yes.
Okay.
And then you get a pretty substantial discount.
Gosh, that's like $100 bonus every day.
Nowadays, yeah. Oh my goodness. So yeah, turnover was pretty high, but the ones that wanted to be there and that really enjoyed it, they invested in making sure that they stayed.
Sure.
Yeah, and they could move up the food chain if they wanted to.
Okay.
So I did a lot of other almost like subcontract store manager roles, where I would go and be tapped to help out a struggling store with a store manager that was just not meeting expectations. And so I got tapped to go do like 6 to 9 month stints in other locations to help them get back up on their feet and get processes back in line, and kind of weed out the talent that was not living up to expectations, and then bring in people that were going to be a better fit.
Okay. Wow. So you got the recruiting experience too. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's the hardest part, is you're taking a gamble on somebody you spent maybe a half an hour with, and you're trying to be like a very quick judge of character.
Yeah. So I've heard 2 different onboarding views. We've all heard the really take your time, a 4-step interview process, gets to the next level, like super detailed, so that you know who you're getting. Like, you actually take the time. I've also heard the hire fast, fire quicker mentality. Was there one that you...
It was kind of a little bit of both.
Okay.
Because with retail management, you don't get the luxury of 3, 4, 5 interviews. It's typically you sit down, it's something like this where it's like a half hour ish conversation, and it's, hey, do I get the right feeling? Like, do you check the boxes of what kind of mentality are you going to bring to the store? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How does that play into who's already here? And every store has its own vibe, has its own clientele base where
Sure.
if I really like that person, but they're not a good fit for my store, but they could be a better fit for, say, a slower store that's more relational and is like 90% regulars day in and day out, then I would refer them over to a different store.
Okay, so it's not always replacing; it's moving around.
Correct.
A
Yeah.
little bit. Okay.
Yeah, because every store has its vibe. Like I said, managing that U Village store, that one was just high volume, go, 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 go. And then I think I worked in right around 10 different stores throughout my career.
Oh.
And like the last one was very much a neighborhood store, still in like the core downtown area of Seattle.
Okay.
But there was residential really close by. There were homeless shelters really close by. In the summer, we had cruise ships coming in that were 2 blocks away. We were a quarter mile from the stadiums, so we would get football traffic, baseball,
Sure.
soccer.
Sure.
So it was a very eclectic store, but definitely not high volume.
Okay. Yeah, so that would take a different group of people.
Yeah,
You'd want a more small town feel.
A little bit, and also really thick skin, especially with the tourists, because you had all different types of people from all over the world,
Sure.
different personalities and expectations.
Okay.
And then with the 2 shelters, we had a lot of homeless people, a lot of drug addicts. So you had to be able to deal with those situations directly with the homeless people, and then indirectly the people that are in the lobby or in line. And how do you kind of navigate those situations that just come up out of nowhere, and they can be volatile. And we got to know the police department very well at that location. They got a lot of free coffee.
Were there any, in those certain situations, were there any rules of there had to be like multiple people at the store at the same time?
100%, yes. Okay. Yeah. Safety and security was a big deal, especially at the downtown location.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So, but working with Starbucks, it was very eye-opening. And with that last store, I was at a crossroads of, do I continue down the road of retail management? Because realistically, my next step up would be to a district manager.
Okay.
Which would be roughly 70 to 80 hours a week on average working. And that wasn't really something I was keen on doing, because we had young kids at that time.
Okay.
And I didn't want to be at work. I wanted to be at home. But then also Seattle, cost of living was astronomical. So you got to figure out how you're going to pay the bills. Sure. And I considered jumping over to corporate because that was nearby, like 20-minute drive. So, but there really wasn't anything that I wanted to or was excited to get into. Okay. I did some informative or informational interviews with different departments. And I totally could have made the jump. I just wasn't excited about that. Yeah. And it was providential around that time that I actually got recruited out of Starbucks into new home construction industry. Okay. So the guy that hired me, this is family friendly, so we'll not go into his personality, but he wanted to recruit people that had customer service background and could manage personalities and expectations, which I could. I had a lot of experience in that realm. Yep. So I got hired into new home warranty work with a home builder where I knew nothing about construction. I didn't grow up working in that field whatsoever. So I was green. I knew literally nothing. And being in construction is a different world as well, with personalities and
yeah, you enter into the blue collar side of things.
Yes,
it's a little different.
Yeah, language was different. Yeah, compliments were few and far, and so it was a crash course. But I thrived in it. And
Cool.
Working with homeowners who had certain expectations of what the home should be and where it was were, usually different. And then, so then it was my big challenge day in and day out was keeping homeowners happy, managing expectations on their end while making sure the number of warranty claims coming in was minimal. And then I could clear those off of my plate as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Without spending money if possible. And if I had to, it was as minimal as possible.
Okay.
Which was a tightrope to walk a lot of the time.
Sure.
And then keeping the trades happy, because a lot of times trades were like, well, I don't get paid for that. I'm like, okay, well, it's in the job description, so I'm not going to write you a PO because you want to get paid to show up for something you didn't do right the first time.
Right.
So
that's tough.
There were a lot of conversations of you need to do your job correctly and not piss and moan to the homeowners in front of them.
Right.
If you have issue, you come get me and we'll have a conversation elsewhere.
Little kind of middleman type.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was like, how many people can I keep happy today?
Oh, I couldn't do it.
Yeah. So,
I couldn't do it.
And with that specific home builder, the writing was on the wall that I couldn't advance upward anywhere.
You couldn't?
No, because the people above me were probably in their 50s and very set in their roles.
Yep.
And so I was like, well, if they're not going anywhere and they've been very clear that they have zero intention of going anywhere anytime soon, like, well, what do I do now?
Yep.
So 3 years in, we made the jump from Seattle and moved out here to the Springs.
Okay.
Because my wife's sister and her husband, they met at Focus and after college, and they've been out here for over 20 years.
Wow.
And so we made the decision, well, if we're going to move anywhere, it's going to be with family.
Sure.
And so we moved out here almost 10 years ago now.
Okay.
Moved out here for a job that definitely did not work out. It was less than a year at that job.
Oh.
It was commercial real estate appraisal,
Okay.
and it just was not a good fit for my personality with how the company was set up and their expectations. So it was a lot of, okay, God, you brought us to Colorado. Mm-hmm. Now what? Mm-hmm. And it was very much surrendering and trusting and waiting. So in that season, my wife was in a Bible study with other women, and one of the women was down here in the Springs. We were up in Castle Rock at the time.
Okay.
And she said, hey, a local home builder is hiring. Your husband should check it out. And it was for home warranty, being a warranty guy. And I was like, well, I don't have many options at the moment.
Yeah, you kind of got to take
none.
what you got.
So I was like, all right, God, if this is what you want, then put it into play.
Yeah.
So I applied, and my boss hired me on the spot.
Oh, great.
He's like, you're going to be a good fit. And he was right. It was a good fit. I was there right about 5 years.
Okay.
Managing the entire department the last 3.
Okay.
And they're a great company, smaller builder, very intent on the relationship with the homeowner.
Excellent.
So it was a good fit. But then out of that, I met the previous owner of the company I now own, and we really liked the type of covers he was building, and they were what we recommended to homeowners. So we would just hand out flyers for him and kind of give him free advertising as much as possible.
Yeah, that's neat.
And a few years later, he wanted to retire, move on, and so he offered us to buy the business. So wife and I prayed about it, talked about it. We're like, okay, God, if this is what you want for us, then fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Make the details come together, and they did. And it'll be 3 years in April that we've owned the business.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Because that's a big jump.
100%.
That's a full blind jump into the
that
unknown.
is jumping off the deep end, not knowing how to swim, and saying, I got this.
So I want to hear more the process behind that. I do want to take a quick step back. You mentioned one of the phrases you used was you don't collect a check, you earn a check.
Correct.
Where did that influence and mentality come from? Where did you
It's a
get
great question.
the
'cause-
morals and just your view on things?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a very blue-collar family, neighborhood, suburban area where,
Okay.
you lived paycheck to paycheck most of the time.
Sure.
And growing up, my parents, they put it on us, if you want a car, like, we'll help you with that, but essentially you are paying for insurance, gas, maintenance, anything and everything.
Yep.
And so from the moment I turned 16, I've worked. I worked all through high school. I essentially worked full time in college. And then it's always been my mentality of, well, I don't want to work just good enough to keep my job. I want to be the best,
Okay.
or at least really good. Like I ran cross country in high school, and we always joked, second place is the first loser.
Yeah.
So like that also just really kind of etched into my brain of, like if you're playing for second place, you've already lost.
Sure.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
go out, kick butt, take names,
Yep.
and you're not going to win every one, but if you're playing like you are going to win,
Yeah.
you're going to win more games than not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's not for the faint of heart when you're like, second place is the first loser, but that was our mentality, because our cross country team wasn't very good, but we had a lot of fun and we lost a lot, but it was like, but we improved too every year.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Do you think your experience in that, working young, being in that kind of financial position growing up, is that do you have that kind of view for your kids as well?
100%.
Is that kind of the way that you're encouraging them to go?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Like we don't do allowances at home.
Yep.
Like if you want money, you're going to work.
Yep.
And that's beyond your chores that are day to day, week to week, month to month.
Right. Because those are just being part of the family.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to eat my food. Dang it. You're going to work to pay me
Exactly.
back somehow.
Exactly.
So
Yep, absolutely.
I'm like, food ain't cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like even my oldest, 14 now, like he has expressed interest in working with me this summer.
Very cool.
And I said, 100%. You're old enough. You're capable enough. You can learn the ropes.
Yep.
Just be ready though, because summer's busy season. So if you come with me for work one day, it could be a 12-hour day.
Oh yeah.
So
that'll be good.
Yeah,
That'll
be eye-opening for him, because he's like, oh yeah, I know you get busy. I'm like, okay, I know you know what I do.
Right.
But stepping into the shoes of actually doing it
Yep.
is completely different. Like we homeschool our kids, but
Yeah.
our house backs up to a high school. And so we see all of like the late starts and the extra days off. And our kids sometimes get upset when they're like, well, why don't we get a day off?
Sure.
I was like, because we are raising you to be set apart.
Yeah.
Like you have higher calling in your life
Absolutely.
than to just do the bare minimum. And I mean, it's one of my favorite motivational phrases that my kids know very well is get your poop in a scoop and get it off my lawn, which is like, get your stuff together and get it out of my peripheral, because like, if you're slacking off, then that puts more work on my plate. And your job is to not make me work more, but for me to teach you how to work more and
Right.
take responsibility.
Exactly.
Because if you can't own your mistakes, you shouldn't be owning your victories.
Ooh. Say that one a little louder.
Yes.
Goodness. That's, yeah. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
We live in a culture where accountability is
Yeah.
not a thing. You just pass the buck.
Well, and like even like, so our oldest, when a couple years ago, I was coaching his little league baseball team. And my big thing with the boys was we are going to win as a team and we're going to lose as a team and we're going to do it well. And a lot of them looked at me like, what is this crazy guy talking about?
Losing well. But...
And I'm like, how you lose a game
yeah.
is a very big revelation of character.
Sure.
And anymore nowadays, character is lost on society.
Yep.
And definitely don't want that to be out of our household. So
Sure.
like I had the kids run polls after practice.
Okay.
So like baseball, so like, and the way I set it up, it wasn't just like right field pole and back. It was home plate, right field pole, touch the pole, home plate, left field pole, touch the pole, home plate. That's one.
Okay.
And
Goodness.
and that was at the end of practice. And they're like, why are you making us do this?
Yeah.
I was like, I want to know what you got left in the tank.
Sure.
I want to know what you're going to give me when it's tough, when it's the end of practice. And I had a kid, he was built like a refrigerator. He knew nothing about baseball, like literally nothing.
Okay.
And I told him, I was like, hey, I know you're not going to be the fastest to the pole and back and pole and back. However, you will run the whole way. If you walk, the whole team will do it again. And he's like, why? I'm like, because we win as a team.
Sure.
We lose as a team.
I hear you.
And all of the different details of that will come into play throughout this season of how we play as a team.
Yep.
So I want you guys to be the team that has each other's back and that is pushing each other to improve. And he did. By the end of the season, he was stealing bases.
Really?
He was getting base hits consistently. He could throw correctly. I mean, it was awesome.
Wow.
So,
And in a world where that would, I mean, you were taking a risk doing that in today's culture.
Yeah. Oh, his mom gave me full blessing day one. She's like,
oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, the remote is gone. The TV's off. He is all yours.
Excellent.
If he cries, too bad. And I'm like, okay, I'll try not to make him cry. But yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so how old were you? I mean, how old are you? Are you willing to say
How
that?
old am I now?
Yeah.
What's today? Friday? I'm 42 right now, but I'll be 43 on Sunday.
Okay.
So
congratulations. Happy
Thank you.
birthday.
Yeah.
So you bought the company, you said 3 years ago?
yeah, so when I was 40.
And how long had you guys been married at that point?
40, oh, you can make me do math. Just over 16 years.
Okay. Yes, what was that like? What was that first conversation with your wife like?
So she knows this. So I've always had a desire to own my own business.
Okay.
I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't even know if it was realistic.
Yep.
Cause like I worked at Papa Murphy's growing up, and the guy that owned the store I worked at, he owned like a dozen in the area.
Okay.
And he was just a super cool guy. He was very generous with his time, and his mentorship. And I also saw what he was bringing home and how he was providing for his family.
Yep.
And I wanted that. I didn't grow up with that. I grew up on the other end of the stick where it's like, if you want something, go work for it, because mom and dad don't have the money for it.
Sure.
And not that it's a bad thing, but it teaches you perseverance and endurance and to want more.
Absolutely.
And so when I could see the writing on the wall with working for the home builder here in town, I had a conversation with my boss about like, where do I go from here? And he's like, well, we can talk about maybe you joining the ownership group one day. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, awesome. One, that you would even consider that, but like, what's the time frame? And ballpark, it was a 5-year plan. And I was like, okay. I'm like, that's realistic.
Yep.
I get it. I understand. But having conversations with my wife, I'm like, I don't know if I can keep doing this same job day in and day out for 5 more years.
Sure.
Or even taking on like different roles in the company for 5 more years before getting the seat at the table that is being discussed.
Okay.
And just a lot of prayer, a lot of, do I continue? Do I endure well? Like, is this the road I'm supposed to be on? Or is there something else out there? And I had no idea that the window well company was going to come down the pipeline until he pulled me aside one day when I was dropping off more flyers for him. He's like, hey, my wife and I have been talking about selling the company. Would you be interested in buying it?
Wow.
And I'm like, huh. Honestly, I never thought about it.
Yeah.
But
Really? So that it had never crossed your mind?
not that specifically, no.
Wow, okay.
And, like I've always been decent with my hands, but I've never been an expert in that respect.
Okay.
I mean, I got a crash course day in and day out, working warranty, learning a lot about the trades, and getting kind of a free education.
Okay.
But with this, it was so specialized and so niche that I was like, okay, well, I know there's a need. Like 90% of the homes in the Springs have window wells because they have basements. So, I mean, there's definitely upside to it.
Yep.
And so it was just, again, a lot of prayer, surrender, asking, is this what you have for me? Like, if it's not for us, make it really clear. Just as clear if it is for us.
Sure.
And things kept lining up. Like the process kept moving forward. Everything kept making sense. And provisions kept coming through. So we got to the point where it's like we got approved for the business loan.
Okay.
We had, by God's grace, funds to do a down payment. And here we are.
How long from that first question, would you like to buy this company, to signing? How long was that?
I think it was about 8 or 9 months.
Okay.
And if everything had lined up correctly from day one, it probably would have been 60 days at most.
Okay.
But it just kept like roadblock after roadblock after roadblock with the bank that we originally started with. And that was super frustrating because I'm like, okay, why am I continuing down this road? Especially 3-4 months in where they're just dragging their feet, or like they need one more document for this or one more proof of funds for that. And it was a lot of, God, if this is what you want for us, then continue. Please, like, show us that we should keep moving forward.
And that's interesting to me. A lot of people would consider those roadblocks that would cause hesitancy. Am I supposed to be doing this? Why is this so difficult?
At times, yeah, especially because it got to the point where eventually we got declined for the business loan.
Okay.
And it was the way the guy explained it to me. Super cool guy. I still talk to him occasionally. But he explained it to me that it had nothing to do with the business financials, our personal approval to get the loan. It was everything to do with their practices, with their guidelines and procedures that were set up.
Interesting.
And so I was like, okay, well, that sucks, because I thought we were going to move forward. I thought this was going to work.
Yeah.
And so I asked him, I'm like, okay, well, what do I do now? Because I don't know what to do. I don't know if we find a different bank. Like, can you recommend anybody, or do we just quit? He was like, all right, let me reach out to a few people. I'll get back to you next week. And we got on with another lady. Basically, same thing happened, only it was like a 2-month process.
Okay.
And then she referred us to the person who ended up approving the loan.
Oh, the second one denied you too?
Yes.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes. So we were to the third, and I told my wife at that point, I was like, if this third person doesn't approve us, then we're done. I can't keep doing this. Like, it was just so much angst because I couldn't talk about it with anybody except my wife.
Right.
And I can't talk about it with people at work. Like, hey, I'm getting ready to say adios.
Yeah.
It was like, how do I can't get it out more so than my wife, which was a great outlet. But then she looked at all the numbers and she's like, we specialize in small business startups, which is essentially what you are, even though you're buying a company.
Okay.
And within 2 weeks, we were approved. And I think like a week or two later, we closed.
Wow.
And the owners at that time too, they were starting to get real irritated because they're like, we've taken the business down from being advertised as for sale.
Okay.
We're like committed to you because you've done this process, but we're also at the point where if the third bank doesn't come through, then we got to move on as well.
Right. They need to.
And I was like, that's fair.
Close it up as well.
Like I felt bad for them. Like he had to work an extra 9 months. He didn't want to, but whatever. He's fine with that.
So through 2 companies denying you.
Yes.
What made you so sure? Where was the confidence?
I think the prayer for that time was, if it's your will be done, it'll be done.
Okay.
And trusting and being patient. Because it's like, if it doesn't happen, then it's not meant to be. It's not part of God's plan.
Absolutely.
I still have a job that I enjoy and that I'm good at and that is providing for my family.
Okay.
At that point, I had it in my head because I could see what was possibly on the horizon, and that looked better and more fruitful and like the next chapter of life. But I also had to wrestle with the fact that possibly that wasn't going to be what God wanted. And so it was just, your will be done, not mine.
That's
your
faith.
will be done.
Yeah.
It is. It's 100% faith.
Yeah. It's a big step.
Yeah. And had I not been approved, you and I wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Well, praise God.
Amen. Yeah. I mean, you were in junior high at the time. But.
Yeah. So what was let's get into the nitty gritty a little bit. What was the actual process like acquiring the business? Was that, aside from the loan, what else went on? Was it smooth? Was there?
Oh yeah. It was a lot of documentation, financials, which, having never done that before, I was like, just tell me what you need.
Sure.
And they're like, well, here's a checklist. I'm like, I don't know what half this even means. Like, I didn't go to business school.
What?
That just happened. Woo.
This
hot dang.
Table we're on just cracked.
Woo. Wow.
I don't know what to do.
I don't know. That's crazy. Well, I mean, we can't fix it, but that's crazy.
Wonder how much that's going to cost me.
Hot dang.
Well.
Yeah. Live on the air.
Carry on. Goodness gracious.
So it was a lot of compiling financials, and then I had to write a business plan. And my wife, she graduated from college with a business degree. So she had written business plans. She knew how to do that, which again is just God's provision of her helping and editing and improving. And she's like, well, why is this section here? This shouldn't even be here. I'm like, I don't know. I'm going off a template. I have no idea what I'm really doing. I'm just fulfilling the obligation.
Okay.
And so she was an absolute blessing,
cool.
Helping out that process. And I mean, it was just a mountain of paperwork.
Yeah.
A mountain. And then we got approved, and we went and signed all the papers of buying the business. And then the sellers came in the next day. They did their part, and they got a big check and got to go retire.
Was there a time period where, like, did he teach you the ropes? I assume
so that was part of the purchase and sale agreement. Was like, we closed on a Friday, and then we were working on a Monday, that next Monday, which was kind of funny because that weekend my wife's like, so are you supposed to be working? I'm like, I don't know, but we own a business.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, we technically own a business. I don't know if I should be working. And she's like, I think you should. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. But yeah, so on that Monday through Friday, basically, I was his trainee, but he wasn't allowed to like touch anything. Like because like the liability insurance was done on his end, and since I don't have employees, it's just me.
Right.
Then everything was on me.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a crash course for that week, and then I was on my own. And so then, like my wife and I own the business together, but I essentially do everything with the business. Okay. So like I order all my materials. I have to receive all my materials with the forklift, and making sure all my materials are in on time, so that way I don't have gaps in service time.
Sure.
And then paperwork and, calling prospective buyers, and like literally everything's on my shoulders. Right. But I love it because it's way less stressful than warranty work, where people only call when there's problems.
They're upset. Yeah.
Now I get people calling where they know I can help solve an issue or problem for them.
Sure. Oh yeah, right. They're coming to you for this. Yeah.
So and then
that's excellent.
Yeah, managing social media, which I have somebody helping me with that. And then advertising, like those are decisions I have to make, win or lose, succeed or fail. Like that's lessons I've had to learn as well.
Was it pretty intimidating at first, or did you feel pretty confident going into all of that? Because most of that was new.
Yeah,
right.
It changed day to day.
Okay, sure.
Some days were a lot better than others, because it's making big decisions, and there's a lot more numbers before the decimal point than anything I'd ever done before.
Okay.
But it's also, there's more money going out as well. So it's managing quantity of my material. Like I could order as much as I want, but I also have to be prudent in not over ordering. So that way I'm not spending more money than I need to at a given time.
Right.
or taking advantage of trying to make my income at the end of the year look a little bit better tax-wise. And so I may order materials in December, even though I don't need them until February or March.
Okay. I hear you.
Just to help out with the financials for that year,
Yeah.
if possible.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So how's it been?
It's been good.
Overall?
I mean, it's a roller coaster. Like, my reels of plastic come in. It's a healthy chunk of change, and that can last anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months, depending on the time of year.
Okay.
But then all my aluminum, I buy that once a year.
Okay.
My brackets are once a year, and those are big purchases that I have to make sure my money is in the bank before I submit that order.
Did that take time getting used to? Spending
Yes.
a lot of money?
Yes, it's very intimidating.
Is it still? I still get intimidated by it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Even when you know what's coming in and all the numbers check out,
it's still
signing a check for
yeah.
tens of thousands of dollars or whatever it is.
Oh,
it's
it
still,
is. Yeah, multiple times a year.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, you make so much money. And I'm like, well, sure. If you look at my gross income,
Yeah.
it's a bigger number.
Yeah.
But then once you take away all of my expenses, all my materials,
Oh, yeah.
and then all the taxes, and then all of the requirements by city, state, and federal, I'm like, okay, I'm making more than I was working for the home builder, but it's not by much.
Sure. Yep.
But it's also up to me. Like, if I want to take a Tuesday afternoon off to go have a coffee date with my wife, I can. If I need to stay home and help homeschool for whatever reason for my wife with her, then I can.
Yep.
If my kids want to go to Shields on a Tuesday morning for an hour, depending on the time of year, but like this time of year, I can.
Yeah.
And I love having that freedom. And I've gotten to go see some really cool parts of the state too. Like this last fall, I went up to Fairplay.
Okay.
Because the guy called and said, "Are you willing to come here?" I said, "Well."
Oh, you went up there for a cover?
For 2 covers.
Oh,
yeah.
no kidding.
And he was way outside of Fairplay, like almost to Breckenridge.
Wow.
And he called me and I said, "Look, normally I don't go that far out, but I'm getting to that point of the year where I could dedicate a day to do that."
Huh?
And I was like, "I need you to take the measurements for me and take pictures of that and send them to me, and then I can give you the estimate and have the trip fee included in there to go up and back, mostly just for travel and time."
Yeah.
And he said, "Okay, that works." So I went up to Fairplay and did 2 wall covers.
Was that a bigger ticket?
It was big. It was bigger than normal, sure. Just to cover the time and the gas and all that. I mean, he was back in the woods too. It was off of a backwoods highway onto a gravel road onto a dirt road.
Oh wow!
I mean, it
Way
was
out there.
off grid.
Way out there.
Yeah, no cell coverage, nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, cool spot.
Yeah.
But it was out there.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd never been that far out to do work, so I was like, sure, why
Yeah,
not?
that's I mean, what? That's an hour and a half.
For him, it was 2.5 each way.
2.5 each way.
2.5.
Whoa.
Yeah, well, because the work truck it gets up to 80 in about an hour, so yeah,
Exactly.
it is a slow moving machine until it gets up to speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like this morning, I was up in Woodland Park.
Sure.
Because he called some other company and they said, "No, we don't go there." And
Interesting.
he asked me, "Do you come up here?" Sure. And I mean, it was for 1 wall cover, but I'll go up there for one.
Sure.
Yeah, work is work.
I feel like I remember we've had some conversation about you. I see you as a very generous person.
Try to be.
How have you been able to do that in business?
Well, like the Fairplay job, my wife saw the number. She's like, "You could have charged way more for that."
Okay.
I was like, "I could have, but it covered costs and it covered most of the gas." So I was like, "Okay, it's a learning experience."
Yeah.
And I don't see failures as failures.
Okay.
I see them more as an opportunity to improve.
Okay.
I mean, it sucks falling on your face, but you get up and do it again the next day.
Right.
That's the beauty of life.
Right.
Mercies are new every day. So it is definitely a learning curve.
Okay.
Day to day. Most of them are successes, but not always.
Yep.
Like I've done jobs where I should have charged way more than I did. But I look at that as grace.
Yeah, sure.
I have my wife will attest to this if she ever sees this, but sweet old ladies are my weakness.
Okay. Yep.
I mean, if they got the blue font hair and they're meeting me at the door with cookies, they're going to get a deal. Mm-hmm. They will get a deal. So, I try to be generous. And, older people, I'll give discounts on top of other things. But, single moms really get me.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of work either for like half off or less. Just because they're in a spot. And growing up in a split household, seeing how my mom struggled through that, it's a soft spot. Yeah. So, and I feel if you have the ability to be generous, then it's your responsibility to be generous. So I try to, within reason, as much as possible.
I asked that because, especially for just believers in the industries, it can be a tension point of how to do it.
Sure.
Because I do believe it's a calling, and it is a Christ-like thing to do, especially in situations where it truly is helping people out. And they need this thing. I mean, well covers they're important.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about kids falling in, pets falling in, debris going through the window.
100%. Yeah.
Brendan's walking by. Don't want to see the table. Oh, I think he's at the table. We'll talk to him after.
Oh, yeah. That's episode 2.
Yeah. So, yes, that's helpful. That's a good example. And I think it's important to find ways to be able to give.
Yeah. Like whether it's friends, family, coworkers, even if like some people have investment properties and I've done 1 or 2 of their homes and they want me to go do another one. Yeah, I'll knock off. Additional.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think that's really important. Have you had any crazy experiences doing this work?
Yeah. I mean, it's dealing with the public. So there's interesting run-ins here and there. Nothing really outlandish.
Okay.
One was really actually fun for me. A lady up in Glen Eagle, super nice lady, cool house. And I kind of geek out on architecture. So some people I will compliment their houses, and other homes I will say nothing. But yeah, this lady, super sweet. She's like, hey, we set up the install, and she's like, I'm going to be working out. Are you good just working here without me here? I'm like, that's fine, as long as the gate's unlocked, because I go back and forth with the process quite a bit.
Sure.
And so I get there, nobody's home. I expected that. Open the gate. Well, here comes her dog.
Oh.
And so I closed the gate, and I text her because she said, if anything comes up, text me, don't call. I was like, okay. I text her, I'm like, hey, you forgot to lock the doggy door and your dog's out. What do you want me to do? Do we need to reschedule?
Yeah.
And she's like, no, she's fine. She won't run. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, do I trust what she's going to say?
Oh, that's such a gamble.
How exactly? I'm like, because I'm here. I want to do the work. I want to get paid. Like,
right.
What do I do?
Right.
And I was like, okay, you're 100% sure she won't run? She's like, nope, she won't run. Okay. Well, that install should have taken somewhere around an hour and a half. I was there for 2.5 hours because this dog was the sweetest dog ever, did not run, and she followed me everywhere and brought me every single one of her toys.
Wow.
So every time I was at a well and, measuring either the metal or the plastic, I got a new toy dropped at my feet. And so I just played with this dog. And when I'd go back out to do work at the truck, she would follow me to the front yard and then lay down in the grass and wait for me.
Aww.
And I was like, I don't even care that I've been here an hour longer than I should have. I was like, this is perfect. I was like, what a great way to spend a morning. Yeah.
It's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, sun was shining, beautiful weather, and I'm playing with the dog and getting paid to work.
It's always a good day when I'm out cutting grass and they just got a new puppy or something.
Yeah.
That happens a surprising amount, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Look, I'm sprinting down.
Yeah.
I will ruin my schedule to play with that dog.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, can I play with your dog? They're like, oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, here we are.
So what's your advice? What have you learned? What have been the biggest things you learned that somebody either entering into acquiring a business or starting one on the business side of things, what's been your biggest
I think
moments?
it's so like Colossians 1:11 always comes to my mind. And I pray that often a lot for my personal life with the kids and my wife and friends and family, as well as business. So it's, may you be strengthened with all power according to his glorious might for all endurance and patience with joy. And for me, the big part of that are those last three attributes as one.
Okay.
Endurance, like it's day to day. You're going to have great days and you're going to have terrible days.
Yep.
But every day is a blessing. So whatever worked on the really great days, replicate that. Whatever went terrible on the bad days, figure out how to not replicate that. Patience, like you're on your own now. Like if it sucks, you can't quit and go to another job. Like this is your income. And especially if you're married, and again, more so when you have kids. Yeah. Like, like failure is not an option. There, like I joke with my kids. I'm like, there's no I and quit. And they're like, there is an I and quit. I'm like, not in me. And they're like, oh, the dad jokes.
That's brutal.
But, but I was like, but the endurance and the patience and joy, like joy. If you're not joyful.
Yes.
Every single day, then it's like, what are you doing?
Do you have a definition of joy?
I mean, joy of the Lord is our strength. So, I mean, to me, it's a choice. It's a blessing and a choice. Even when it sucks, when it's hitting the fan, when it's terrible, if your joy is still in the Lord, then he's still with you. And he's still guiding, he's still directing. And I think it kind of goes back to cross country in high school. It's like, second place is the first loser, and embrace the suck. It's not all roses and sunshines every single day. Like the trials are there to grow you and improve you. So instead of fretting and being frustrated, embrace them and learn from them and keep pushing. And you'll make it day by day. Sure. Yeah. It's like, I'm not in this, I didn't buy the business to become financially rich. It was, I knew based on the numbers that my income was going to be based off of volume. And so that's what I've kept it at. I don't charge as much as other people in town. I know I'm not the cheapest, but I'm definitely not the most expensive. Okay. But I try to fulfill on the quality of the material, the quality of the install, and then how I make an impact on who I'm dealing with. Sure. And that's just a day-to-day of treat others how you want to be treated. Yep. And I think if you can accomplish that day in and day out, that's going to prove success more so than a lot of other attributes.
That's a good word.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you have any... would that be your concluding thought, or do you have anything else you want to say to anybody?
I mean, we're on top of a mountain right now, so I figure, let's stop here and look around. Yeah. We're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for being on the pod.
Yes, sir. This is fun.
It is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to Brendan about this table I just broke. Y'all can't see it, but we got the mics clamped to the table, and it just cracked.
Don't do crack, kids. It's expensive. Especially with glass tables.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Patrick.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye-bye.